this is the heart, and this is its position in the body. Okay, so this is apex of the heart. This is the sternocostal surface, or the anterior surface, which meets the sternum and the costal cartilages. And this is base, or the diaphragmatic surface of the heart, which sits on the tendinous part of the diaphragm. Okay, now talking about the chambers, we've got 4 of them. This is all the right atrium. This is the right ventricle. This is the left ventricle. And this is the left atrium. This part of the right atrium is called the right auricle. Right auricle. This part of the left atrium is called the left auricle. This part, or this eminence of the right ventricle, is called the pulmonary conus, or infundibulum. It's supplied by the right conus artery and the left conus artery, which we'll talk about. Okay, now talking shortly about the main arteries and veins of the heart. This is the superior vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava. This is the pulmonary trunk, dividing into the right and left pulmonary arteries. These are the pulmonary veins, to the right and to the left. This is the ascending aorta. Okay, now talking about each chamber. If we open the right atrium, we've got some openings. This is opening for the superior vena cava. Opening for the inferior vena cava. Opening for the coronary sinus. This is coronary sinus itself. This is its opening. This is the fossa ovalis. Fossa ovalis. This is originally a foramen in the fetus, but after birth, this will become it will become a fossa. It's named fossa ovalis, and this edge is called the annulus ovalis. Annulus ovalis. Okay, and we also have the right atrioventricular orifice, or opening, like that, for passage of blood from the right atrium to the right ventricle. This orifice or opening is guarded by a valve, which is called the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve consists of 3 cuspes. Okay, this is the anterior cusp, the posterior cusp, and the septal cusp of the tricuspid valve. The septal cusp attaches to the intraventricular septum. This is the intraventricular septum. Okay, the cuspes of the tricuspid valve are attached to the chordae tendineae. These thin structures are called the chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae are in turn attached to the papillary muscles. Okay, so this is the papillary muscle. The other papillary muscles are not very obvious in the right ventricle. This is papillary muscle, and this is attached to the wall of the right ventricle. And actually here we can see the other papillary muscle. Again, this is papillary muscle of the left ventricle. Sorry, of the right ventricle. Papillary muscle. All right, and these structures on the wall of the ventricle are called the tuberculi carneae. Tuberculi carneae. These structures on the wall of the auricle are called the musculi pentoniti. Musculi pentoniti. So it's like this. Musculi pentoniti for the auricle, and for the ventricle, tuberculi carneae. All right. So the blood, the deoxygenated blood of our body comes back to the heart, to the right atrium through the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and also the coronary sinus. From there it will be pushed through the right atrioventricular orifice to the right ventricle, and from there the blood will be pushed into the pulmonary trunk through the pulmonary valve. This is the pulmonary valve, and this is the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk at the level of the sternal angle will divide into the right and left pulmonary arteries. Right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery. That the oxygenated blood through these two arteries will go to our lungs, and from there, through the process of respiration, they will be oxygenated again, and then through the pulmonary veins, the oxygenated blood will come back to our heart, to the left atrium. So these are the two right pulmonary veins and the two left pulmonary veins. They will get the oxygenated blood into the left atrium. So these are the two openings for the two left pulmonary veins, and this is opening for the right pulmonary vein. Actually, we've got two right pulmonary veins, but it seems that they both merge and become one. So this is the opening for the right pulmonary vein. All right, and we've got another opening, which is the left atrioventricular orifice or opening. This. It is guarded by the mitral valve. This is the mitral valve, also called the bicuspid valve, because it has got only two cuspids. This is the anterior cusp and the posterior cusp. Okay, it's like this: anterior cusp and the posterior cusp. It's not very important to differentiate between these cuspids, but anyways, the cuspids are attached to the chordae tendineae. Again, these are the chordae tendineae, and they are attached to the papillary muscles. Here we can see the anterior and posterior papillary muscles very clearly. This is the anterior papillary muscle and the posterior papillary muscle of the left ventricle. They are attached to the wall of the left ventricle. We can see that the wall of the left ventricle is about 3 times thicker than the wall of the right ventricle, and this is to do with the function of the left ventricle, because it has to pump blood through the aorta to all the parts of our body, but this only has to pump blood through the pulmonary trunk to only our lungs. So this needs less power, but this needs more pumping power. Okay, so the blood will be pumped to the ascending aorta through the aortic valve. This is the aortic valve. This is the aortic valve. This is not the aortic opening. The aortic opening is in the diaphragm. This is the aortic valve, and this is the ascending aorta. Of course, this is the level of the sternal angle. At that level, the ascending aorta will become arch of aorta, and then at the sternal angle again, the arch of aorta will become the thoracic descending aorta, but they are not obvious here. Okay, so this is pretty much everything about what we have to know, but now actually we don't have to forget one thing. This is the sulcus terminalis. This edge, like on the outside, is called the sulcus terminalis, but on the inside is called the crista terminalis. This is not the sulcus terminalis, and this is not the crista terminalis. Okay, they are these two edges. This is the sulcus terminalis and the crista terminalis. This is the musculi pectinati and the tuberculi carneae. Alright, and now let's talk about the smaller arteries and veins of the heart. Okay, so this is the right coronary artery and the left coronary artery. They are just above the level of the aortic valve. Okay, so the right coronary artery is this. This is the right coronary artery. It gives off some branches. This is the marginal branch of the right coronary artery. This is the right conus branch that supplies the pulmonary conus or infundibulum. And this is the posterior interventricular descending artery. Posterior interventricular descending artery, a branch of the right coronary artery. As we said, this is the left coronary artery. It has got a very short trunk, and it will very soon divide into two branches, or actually more than two, but anyways, this is the anterior interventricular descending artery. It is very important to know that the posterior interventricular descending artery is a branch of the right coronary artery. The anterior interventricular descending artery is a branch of the left coronary artery. And again, this is the left conus artery, a branch of the left coronary artery that supplies the pulmonary conus or infundibulum. This is the circumflex artery. Okay, circumflex artery, again a branch of the left coronary artery. Alright, and now let's talk about the veins. This is the coronary sinus. From here, kind of. This is the coronary sinus. It receives some other veins. This is anteriorly. This is the great cardiac vein. See, for the arteries we use coronary. For the veins we use cardiac. So don't confuse that. This is the great cardiac vein. Again, like that. Great cardiac vein, and it will drain into the coronary sinus. Okay, so this is the middle cardiac vein posteriorly. This is the middle cardiac vein, again joining the coronary sinus. And this is the small cardiac vein. This is the small cardiac vein, again joining the coronary sinus. Now these are branches of the great cardiac vein. Okay, these all can be regarded as branches of the great cardiac vein. These are the anterior cardiac veins. These will drain right into the right atrium. Okay, so they will directly drain into the right atrium. However, the great cardiac vein, the middle cardiac vein, and the small cardiac vein will first drain into the coronary sinus, and then the coronary sinus, through the opening for the coronary sinus, will drain again back into the right atrium. In the heart, we've got some grooves. This is the anterior interventricular groove, the posterior interventricular groove, the right atrioventricular groove, the left atrioventricular groove, the interarterial groove or septum. This is the other model of the heart. This is its position in the body: apex, sternocostal surface, base, or the diaphragmatic surface. The right atrioventricular groove, the left atrioventricular groove, anterior interventricular groove, posterior interventricular groove, interarterial groove or septum. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, ascending aorta, pulmonary trunk, right and left pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins. We only have 2 pulmonary veins to the right and only 2 to the left, but this has been shown wrongly. Okay. Alright, and now talking about the chambers: right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, right auricle, left auricle, sulcus terminalis, sulcus terminalis, crista terminalis. The structures on the wall of the auricle are called the musculi pectinati. The structures on the wall of the ventricle are called the tuberculi carneae. This eminence on the right ventricle is called the pulmonary conus or infundibulum, supplied by the right and left conus arteries, which could be these, but it's not very clear here. In the right atrium, this is opening for the superior vena cava, opening for the inferior vena cava, opening for the coronary sinus, and this is the fossa ovalis. This is the annulus ovalis, this edge. We also have the right atrioventricular orifice or opening, guarded by the tricuspid valve. It's not very, obvious, but this is the tricuspid valve. It has got 3 cuspes. The cuspes are not differentiated here, but the cuspes are attached to the chordae tendineae, and they are in turn attached to the papillary muscles. The papillary muscle is attached to the wall of the right ventricle. This is the interventricular septum. Okay. In the left atrium, we've got some openings. These are openings for the left pulmonary veins, and this is opening for the right pulmonary veins. We also have an opening for the or between the right atrium and right ventricle, which is called the right atrioventricular orifice or opening, guarded by the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. It has got two cuspids only. Of course, the cuspids are attached to the chordae tendineae, and they are in turn attached to the papillary muscles. It's not very obvious here, but this is one of the papillary muscles. They are attached to the wall of the left ventricle. Of course, it is thicker compared to the right. Blood, or the oxygenated blood from our body, will come to the right atrium and then to the right ventricle. From there, it will be pushed through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary trunk. So this is the pulmonary valve, and this is the pulmonary trunk. At the level of the sternal angle, it will divide into the right and left pulmonary arteries. They will go to the lungs. The blood will be oxygenated, and again, the oxygenated blood will come back to the left atrium of the heart through the pulmonary veins. It will then be pushed through this orifice, the left atrioventricular orifice, to the left ventricle. From there, it will be pushed through the aortic valve to the ascending aorta. This is the ascending aorta, and this is the aortic valve. Now, talking about the arteries and veins of the heart itself. This is the right coronary artery. It has got some branches. We have the marginal branch somewhere around here, but it's not being shown. And this could be the right coneus branch. But the most important branch is this, which is the posterior interventricular descending artery. This is the very short trunk of the left coronary artery. It has got some branches. This is the anterior interventricular descending artery, and this is the left coneus artery. And this is the circumflex artery, a branch of the left coronary artery, circumflex artery. Talking about the veins, this is the coronary sinus. Coronary sinus. This to the anterior is the great cardiac vein. Great cardiac vein. This to the posterior is the middle cardiac vein. Middle cardiac vein. And this is the small cardiac vein. Small cardiac vein. The great, middle, and small cardiac veins will drain into the coronary sinus, and the coronary sinus will then drain into the right atrium through the opening for the coronary sinus. We also have the anterior cardiac veins, which will directly drain into the right atrium.